Hi family, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for clicking. If you're new, you're welcome. Join the family by subscribing to the channel. And today's video, I'll be showing you how to make this beautiful slipper you just saw. So I'll be needing my slipper. I'll be needing 2 mm of round rubber beads. I'll be needing a big needle. I'll be needing 0.5 of the fishing line, and of course a pair of scissors. So let's get straight to this tutorial. Now I'm going to cut off the sides of the slipper like what you're seeing. So don't worry about the sides, the edges, it's not gonna hurt. So I'm going to start by making the marks this part of the slipper. So I'm going to cut about 35 inches of the fishing line on foot, or what you can comfortably work with. After that, I'm going to go ahead and pick 4 of the beads. Now after picking 4 of the bead, I'm going to use the other side of the fishing line to cross the last bead that was picked and pull it to the middle of the fishing line. So this is what you should achieve after doing it. Okay, so I'm going to use one side of the fishing line to pick a bead and use the other side to pick another bead. So 1 bead for each side of the fishing line. Then I'll pick additional bead and cross it with both sides of the fishing line. So this is what I have here. I have a bead at each side of the fishing line. Then I'm going to go ahead and pick additional bead and cross it with both sides of the fishing line. Okay, so this is it after doing it. So this is what I'm going to be doing. I will pick a bead with one side of the fishing line and use the other side to pick another bead. Then I'll pick additional bead and cross it with both sides of the fishing line like this. This is the process or the beginning of matting. So I'll use one side of the fishing line to pick a bead, use the other side to pick another bead, then I'll pick additional bead and cross it with both sides of the fishing line. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this until my desired length. So I have 20 of the beads on the sides of the mark and 21 in the middle of it. So that is the number of beads on the side that I want. I have 20 of them on the sides. So now I'm going to be turning, so I will use one side of the fishing line to pick 2 beads, add additional beads, so in total I'll pick 3 beads. Then I'll use the other side of fishing line to cross it. So we just turn this way. So I'm going to use the same side of the fishing line that I used in picking the beads to pick additional 2 of the beads. Then I'm going to pick another bead and cross it with the other side of the fishing line. So just like I did before, I just repeated. So we are turning upward. So this is it. We just turn upward. So I'm going to be using the fishing line that is immediate to the sides of the mat to be passing through the sides of the mat, while I use the other side to be picking the beads. So I just use the side of the, I just pass my fishing line through the immediate side bead. Then I'm gonna go ahead and use the other side of the fishing line to pick a bead. So this is it. After that, I'll pick additional bead and cross it with both sides of the fishing line. So like this. I repeat it. So I'll use the fishing line closer to the mat and pass through the immediate side bead. Then I'll use the other side to pick a bead and pick additional bead. Then I cross it with the other side of the fishing line like this. So exactly how I'm going to do onto the very top of the mat. So guys, as you can see, I've done up to the last part 2 of the bead. So I'm going to pass through the side bead and use that side of fishing line to pick a bead. Then I'm going to go ahead and pick additional bead and cross it with the other side of the fishing line. So it's left with the very last side bead. So I'm going to go ahead and use my fishing line to pass through it. But here we are going to turn, so I'll be needing 3 for the base. So you're going to turn to be able to add more of the mat. So I use the fishing line immediate to the side bead to pick just a bead. Then I pick additional bead and cross it with the other side of the fishing line to turn it to this way. So we are turning again. So I'll use the same side of the fishing line, to pick 2 beads. Then I'm going to pick additional bead and cross it with the other side of the fishing line to turn again like this, to turn upward, just as we did before. So this way we are going to use the fishing line that is immediate to the side bead to pass through the side bead. So I will use the fishing line to pass through the immediate first side bead. Then I'm going to go ahead and use the other side of the fishing line to pick a bead. Then I pick additional bead and cross it with the other side of the fishing line. I'm going to pass my fishing line through the next side bead using the fishing line immediate to the side bead. Then I'll use the other side of the fishing line to pick a bead and pick additional bead, then cross it with the other side of the fishing line. It is as simple as that if you followed from the beginning. I'll use the fishing line to pass through the immediate side bead and use the other side of the fishing line to pick a bead and pick additional bead and cross it with the other side of the fishing line. I'm going to repeat this until the very last side bead. So follow as I do. So I did a matting up to the very last two of the side bead. So I used the side fishing line to pass through the side bead, then use the other side of the fishing line to pick a bead, pick additional bead and cross it with the other side of the fishing line. So since we need 3 columns, it's left with our last side bead. So this time around, I just passed it through the last side bead, use the other side to pick a bead and pick additional bead and cross it with the other side of fishing line. So this is what you should achieve. So after that, I'm going to tie it up by passing my fishing line through the hole and in the bead, create a loop and pull out the fishing line. I'll do the same for the other side of the fishing line. I'll pass it through the bead, the holes in the bead, create a loop and pull out my fishing line tightly. So after that, I'll just pass my fishing line, the excess of fishing line, through the beads just to make it more secure before I cut off the excess. So the matte part of the slipper is done, so it's left with the bow on top of the slipper. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to cut like 30 inches on forward of the fishing line, of the length that you can comfortably work with. So I'm going to pick a bead and pull it to the middle of the fishing line like this. I'm going to make sure the bead is in the middle of the fishing line. I'm going to go ahead and pick additional bead like this and cross it with the other side of the fishing line and pull it to join the first bead. I'm going to pick another bead and cross it with the other side of the fishing line and also pull it to join the other beads. So I'll be having three of the beads now. So I'm going to go ahead and pick another bead and cross it with the other side of the fishing line. then I pull it to join the other beads. I'm repeating this until I have 7 of them. So I have the 4th bead. I'm going to pick another bead, which is the 5th bead, and cross it with the other side of the fishing line and pull it to join the other beads. Okay. Now make sure you tighten your fishing line. I'm going to pick the 6th bead and cross it to the other side of the fishing line, then pull it to join the other beads. So I have 6 beads. Like I said, I need 7, so this is the last bead. Then I'm gonna go ahead and cross it to the other side of the fishing line, then pull it to join the other beads. Okay, so I have 7 beads on a row, 7 beads on a row, and then this is the base for the bow. This is the base for the bow. So I'm going to use one side of the fishing line. I have 7 of the beads here. I'm going to use one side of the fishing line. Before then, we have 6 holes on each side of the line bead. So I'm using one side of fishing line to pick 2 beads. Like I said, we have 6 holes on the sides, 6 holes created with a fishing line on the side. So I'll count up to the 2nd hole and pass my fishing line through it, and then pass the fishing line back through the last bead that was picked and pull out my fishing line. I hope I'm making sense here. So I'll pick the next bead, pass through the 3rd hole, pull out my fishing line, then pass it from the back of the 3rd bead that was picked. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pick the 4th bead, pass it through the 4th hole of the fishing line, then I will pass my fishing line back through the 4th bead. Okay, so now I'm picking the 5th bead. After picking the 5th bead, I'm going to pass my fishing line through the 5th hole created by the fishing line. Then I'm going to pass my fishing line back through the 5th bead from behind. Now I'm picking the 6th bead. After picking it, I'll pass through the last hole, which is the 6th hole. Then I'll pass my fishing line back through the 6th bead from behind. So it is going to be in descending order. From 7, we're moving to 6, we'll move to 5, then to the last number. So we'll be having 5 of the holes now that we have 6 beads. So just as I did before, I pick 2 of the beads, then I count up to the 2nd hole. I count up to the 2nd hole created with the fishing line. Then after passing through the 2nd hole, I will pass my fishing line back through the last bead that was picked, or the 2nd bead from behind. Then I pick another bead and pass through the 3rd hole and pass my fishing line back through the 3rd bead. Now my 4th bead, I'm going to use it to pass through the 4th hole and pass my fishing line back through the 4th bead from behind. I'm picking the 5th bead and pass my fishing line through the last hole, or the 5th hole. Then I'll pass my fishing line back through the 5th bead. So from 7 to 6 to 5, so now we'll be having 4 of the holes created by the fishing line. So I'm going to start with the 4th or the 4th row by picking 2 beads, then count up to the second hole, pass my fishing line through it and pass it back through the second bead that was picked through it from behind. Now I pick the third bead, pass through the third hole, then I'm passing my fishing line back through the third bead. Now this is my last bead or the fourth bead. I picked it and passed through the last or the fourth hole. Then I'll pass the fishing line back through the fourth bead. So from 7 to 6 to 5 and to 4. So we'll be having 3 holes now. I'm going to pick 2 beads and count up to the second hole, pass my fishing line through it and pass my fishing line back through the second or the last bead that was picked. I'm picking the third bead and pass it through the third hole or the last hole, then pass my fishing line back through the third bead or the last bead that was picked. So counting up to the second or the last row that was picked, we'll be having 2 of the holes now. So I'll just pick 2 beads, pass through the second hole or the last hole, then I'll pass my fishing line back through the second bead. So we'll be having only 1 hole left now. Like I said, it's in descending order. So I just pick a bead and pass it through the hole, then pass the fishing line back through the bead from behind. I hope I made sense here. So that is it from 7 up to 1. So we are going to repeat the same thing for the other half using the other side of the fishing line. So I picked 2 beads and passed through the second hole, then I passed my fishing line back through the second bead that was picked. So I'm picking my third bead and pass it through the third hole, then I'll pass my fishing line back through the bead from behind, the third bead from behind. So this is my fourth bead that I'm picking. I picked it and passed through the fourth hole, then I'll pass my fishing line from behind through the fourth bead that was just picked. So this is my fifth bead. I passed through the fifth hole, then I passed my fishing line through the fifth bead that was just picked. So I'm picking my sixth bead. I picked it and passed through the sixth hole or the last hole. Then I'll pass my fishing line back through the sixth or the last bead that was picked. So we are descending just like we descended on the other half of the design. So we are starting by picking 2 of the beads. We are having 5 holes now. So I'll count up to the second hole and pass my fishing line through it. Then I pass it through the last bead that was picked from behind. So I picked my third bead and passed through the third hole. Then I pass my fishing line back through the bead that was picked or the third bead that was just picked. I picked my fourth bead and passed it through the fourth hole, passed my fishing line through the fourth bead from behind. I'm picking my fifth bead. I passed the fifth bead or the last bead, pass it through my fifth hole or the last hole, then I pass my fishing line from behind through the fifth or the last bead that was just picked. So from 5 we are moving on to 4. So I'm gonna go ahead and start or continue by picking 2 beads, count up to the second hole, then pass my fishing line back through the second bead that was picked. I pick the third bead, pass it through the third hole, then I pass my fishing line back through the third bead that was picked from behind. So this is my fourth bead. I passed through the fourth hole, then I passed through from behind through the fourth bead, just as how we did for the other half up to the very last bead. So guys, we're done with the second the last but one part, so we're left with only one hole. I picked just the bead and passed through the last hole, then I passed it through the bead from behind. So we have our design ready. So this is it. This is how it should look like. So we'll be needing 2 of these before we will be able to make our bow. So this is it. I'm going to join them together to make our bow to be placed on top of the slipper. Now, using the excess of the fishing line on the bow, I'm going to pass it through the holes in the beads from top to down of the other half, like what I'm doing right now. Then I use the down part to pass through the other half as well. Or better still, you can watch it closely and understand what I'm trying to say. So guys, remember to subscribe if not yet subscribed to the channel. Like this video, share this video to your friends and family. Leave a comment in the comment section and let's make a big family. So after being able to pass through them, I'm going to tie them up to secure it more firmly. So use the fishing line to tie them up, just as I'm doing. So tie it as many times as you can for it to be more secured. After that, I trimmed off the excess of the fishing line and make sure I make their bow look beautiful. So I'm just going to use my lighter to flatten the sharpy ends of the fishing line left on the bow. So this is our bow and this is the mat for the slipper. So I'll be placing the bow on top of the slipper like this. I'm going to use my needle to sew it down on the top of the slipper. So I pass my fishing line through the needle and cut the length that I can be comfortable working with. So I make sure one side of my fishing line is longer than the other side of the fishing line. Then I'm going to use the longer side to pass through the bow and tie it before I attach it to the top of the slipper. So after I've tied it to the bow, I'm just passing the excess of the fishing line through the beads or through the bow just to make it more secured before I cut off the excess. So after it has been tied to the bow, I'm going to pierce through the top of the slipper. Please be careful with your fingers here. Be careful with your fingers here. If you can use a plier, it's advisable. If you have a plier, please, I advise use the plier and protect your hands before you injure yourself, please. Okay, so this is how I'm going to be sewing it on top of the slipper. Like I said, I'm used to doing this. That is why I'm comfortable using my free hand. So I pierced through the top of the slipper before I pass my fishing line through the bow. So guys, I'm sorry about this. The camera stopped recording how I ended sewing the bow on top of the slipper and how I started adding the mats on the slipper. So pardon me for that. So like I started from the beginning, I'm very sure it's simple to do it because I was almost done with attaching it to the slipper. Okay, so back to the mat. I just attached my fishing line through to the mat before sewing it on the slipper. I will do the same for the other side of the mat, so don't worry about how I joined it to the side. Just watch me as I do it. So after I have attached the mat on the side of the slipper, I'm just passing my needle or the fishing line through the beads just to make it more secure before cutting off the excess. So that's exactly what I'm doing. So now I'm going to be showing you how I attach the other side to the slipper, just the same way I'm going to be doing this one. So first of all, I attach the fishing line through the mat to the mat by tying it to the mat, like what I'm doing. After that, I pass the excess of the fishing line through the beads before I trim off the excess. So after I have attached it to it, I will place the mat on the side of the slipper, and then I make sure they are equal on the sides of the slipper. After that, I'm going to pierce through my slipper like what I'm doing. Pierce through from the very base of the slipper through the side and pull out the fishing line. I believe if you watch it carefully, you understand me better than me explaining it. So guys, just to remind you, if not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. Click on the notification bells when I upload a new video. You'll be notified. Like this video and share this video to your friends and family. Leave a comment in the comment section for more videos. So after I've been able to sew it to the side of the slipper, I'm just tying it by passing my needle through the holes on the side of the bead and create a loop. Then I pass my needle through the loop to tie it up. So that's exactly what I'm doing. So after tying, I'm just making sure to pass my needle through the bead to make it more secured before I cut off the excess of the fishing line. Okay, so this is done. Thank you guys for watching this video. Support this video by sharing, subscribing, liking this video. Stay tuned for more videos. I love you. Bye.